If you've considered a move to Utah County, you've probably wondered about or thought about American Fork, Utah, located right in the center of Utah County, very close to tech sectors like Silicon Slopes, very close to the big universities, Utah Valley University and Brigham Young University. This is a place that people are talking about. Hi, I'm Micah Olson. I make videos just like this for people like you. If you're considering a move to Utah County, make sure you like and subscribe. You'll get all of my updates and really learn what it's like to live in Utah County. Now, I will say with American Fork, there's so many good things that we're going to talk about. There's also some pretty sizable less good things that we're going to talk about. So stay tuned. I'm going to go through all of the pros, all of the cons of living in American Fork, Utah. Right off the bat, let's start talking about just some of the market stats that you'll see from some of the major reporting sites. And we'll start with the AARP's livability scores. Their very top score, the best of the best, was a 73 out of 100 for 2023. I don't know what that says about the quality of life in the U.S. in general, but the top was a 73. American Fork, Utah actually got a 70 on health. There are great medical facilities around. Quality of life is good. Overall health, we ranked a 70, which is one of the highest possible scores that you can get. American Fork also got a 64 on the engagement category, which is talking about civic and social engagement. There are lots of opportunities to get out and participate in community events. We'll talk about that just a little bit more down the road here. And a 63 on opportunities, which is that category from the AARP is talking about inclusion and what they call possibilities. So there's a lot of togetherness in the city, great economic outlooks, a lot of people getting together socially, and so their opportunity score was also very high. One of the areas that American Fork does not rank very well is on affordability, especially in the housing sector. American Fork is about 17% above the national average. Utah in general is above the national average for the cost of housing. There's so much opportunity here. People are flocking to Utah, which drives housing prices up. In general, American Fork is about 2.5%, I think the number was 2.4% above the Utah cost of living, which puts them about 17% above the national cost of living for housing. But while we're talking about the affordability issues with housing in Utah, let's also talk about some of the other costs of living in American Fork and in Utah in general. Groceries, utilities, transportation, healthcare, all of those are close to or below the national averages. Insurance is typically below the national average. So American Fork is higher in their cost of housing, but generally is lower in most of the other costs of living. One of the things, anywhere you Google American Fork, education is going to come up. For secondary and elementary education, some of the best scores that you will see on great schools come up in American Fork. They actually have the first school that I've ever noticed a 10 out of 10 score is in American Fork. Lots of 9 out of 10s and tons of 8 out of 10s. Now they do have a few schools that rank lower, but for the most part, you're gonna be an 8, 9, or possibly a 10 for secondary and elementary education as reported by great schools. With crime, and you'll hear me say this with most cities in Utah County, the average, especially for violent crime, is lower than the national average. I think the national average is 4 per 1,000 residents. American Fork ranks in at 1.93, so less than half of the national average. However, there are surrounding cities, Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs, Lehigh, that rank lower for violent crime. Some of them are actually less than 1 per 1,000. American Fork, like I said, comes in at 1.93, so a very low crime rate. It's considered a very safe place to live. One more number that I want to hit from Best Places report that they did. Unemployment in American Fork is extremely low. The last number that they reported was 2.8% unemployment, which is virtually zero unemployment if you look at how they calculate those numbers. When they reported the 2.8, the national average is at 6%, just to put that in perspective. Now, I want to jump into my favorite part about American Fork specifically, and about many cities that are on the east side of I-15 in Utah County, but we're going to talk specifically about American Fork. That's the outdoor recreational opportunities and the scenic beauty, and I throw these together. Some people want to kind of break that out into two things, but for me, being outside, if it's beautiful and there's things to do, that is a huge pro for living in a city, and American Fork has tons of outdoor recreational opportunities. Up on the east towards what we call the Wasatch Mountains, you have American Fork Canyon, Timpanogos Cave. There's hundreds of hiking trails, scenic loops to drive, beautiful rivers and canyons. It is just a beautiful place up on the east side. And then over to the west, and you actually even get over west of I-15, is Utah Lake. American Fork has a harbor at Utah Lake, so you can launch your boats and things from there. I will say Utah Lake is probably not the most recreationally used lake in Utah. It's very shallow, and so the water can look a little bit murky because dirt gets kicked up and things. I don't know if I would take a large, water ski boat or something there, but lots of sailing, paddleboard, kayaking, and small boats. You see people, going around pulling inner tubes and surfing on the back of the wakes and things like that. But there is a better lake if you travel up through Heber Valley Canyon, which is a little bit to the south of American Fork. You have Deer Creek Reservoir. That's where most people will do large amounts of water skiing and things. American Fork also has the start of the Murdoch Canal Trail, which is an excellent biking and running trail. Beautiful views. It's relatively flat. I would consider it a beginner trail, but it's great for going on walks and running and biking. And there's all kinds of other trails that connects into. Just great opportunities to get out. I've heard several sites actually say that American Fork, Utah is a paradise for people who love outdoor recreation. Let's hit another couple of pros before I jump into a few big cons of living here. Lots of places call American Fork a family-friendly city. I just like to call it a friendly city. People are connected together. There's all kinds of community events. We've already talked about the low crime rate and the excellent educational opportunities. Add that to the parks, the trails, the outdoor things, and this just becomes a very high-quality place to live. I'll talk about some of the community events that happen in American Fork in just a second, but I want to hit on the American Fork Rec Center because for me, that's a big part of my community. The American Fork Rec Center, it's a little bit dated. If you look up pictures online and things, it looks like it was built in the 70s. I mean, not the new, lots of glass and windows everywhere that you'll see down in Orem or Provo or other rec centers in the area. But they have an absolute plethora of classes for youth. They have tumbling and gymnastics and swimming classes. For adults, they have tons of group classes, X-fitness and cardio things and spinning and Zumba and just all kinds of adult classes that are going on. They actually also have, for the gymnastics and swim, they have meets and presentations that they'll do for the kids. They have an aquatic center where they teach swim, and it's just a lot of activities that you can participate in at the rec center. There are a ton of activities that you can participate in at the American Fork Rec Center. They have an indoor jogging track, although I will say I like some of the newer rec centers a little bit better. Orem has an elevated track, lots of windows around the outside, and you can kind of look down and see people playing basketball and stuff like that. The American Fork, you're kind of tucked down in this area, and I've noticed if I go and run, 3 to 5 miles, I'll actually start to feel a little bit dizzy because the track isn't huge, but it does give you a place to keep up on your running fitness in the winter. They have racquetball pickleball courts and other things like that that are there. They also have, maybe 10 or 15 personal trainers that you can talk to for your fitness plans, which is exceptional. So let's talk about some of the community events. The big summer event is currently called American Fork Steel Days. It's had different names over the years, but it's celebrating the heritage of the people in American Fork and the people who settled American Fork. And they have some pretty cool stuff. They have a golf tournament. They have a Super Mario Kart tournament, which is just really cool and progressive. They have concerts. They have theater that happens, food trucks and things like that everywhere. It's really a fun environment. Then throughout the year, they have D&D nights for teens at the library. They have dance camps for kids. They have a concert in the park summer series that's phenomenal. The setting is just absolutely beautiful in the amphitheater. And they even have things like adult writers classes. It's just a great city with lots of things to draw you into the community and get you out with your neighbors. Now, before everybody thinks that this video is only about the pros of living in American Fork, I want to hit on a couple of the cons. In general, you're going to find some of these for a lot of cities in the area. We've already talked about housing. It is expensive. The median home price, last I checked, was about $534,000. That's expensive. Now, that does get you a lot of house. You know, for that, you'd get over 2,000 square feet. You probably have somewhere around a fifth to a quarter acre lot. I mean, that's a nice place to live. The price is high compared to the rest of the nation, but you're probably getting more house for that as well. But that is a con. It can be expensive to live here. They do have tons of new development happening right now with multifamily housing and new buildings and places going up with parks and things around. So that does help to make living in American Fork more affordable if you're willing to look at townhomes and condos and things like that. The other thing with American Fork, there is not a lot of great public transportation. They do have buses. Here in Utah, it's called the UTA. There are buses that get you around. There is a front runner stop in American Fork, which is basically a train that goes all the way from Provo up to Salt Lake, over to the airport, up to University of Utah. So you can jump on that and commute fairly well. Really, the only major corridor highway going through American Fork is I-15. That can become very crowded and slow during rush hour time. I would highly recommend getting an HOV pass. Being able to use that carpool lane can save you a lot of time getting to and from American Fork during rush hour. And I talk a little bit more about the costs of that in my cost of living in Utah County video that you can find a link for in the description. If you're concerned about walkability, American Fork is probably a little bit better than some Utah cities, but it's not great compared to big cities that you'll find like New York and San Francisco and places like that. So for cons, so far we've talked about public transportation, we've talked about traffic and commute times, we've talked about cost of living. If those are big deals to you, there are areas where you can avoid some of that if you live close to where you work and things. Let's have a conversation on how to avoid some of these. The other con, and this is going to apply to a lot of Utah County, in the winters we have what are called inversions, where a pressure front comes in and kind of traps all of this smog and pollution and dirty air down in the valley. It seems like when you're living here in the winters that this happens so often. I actually looked at the EPA website and they say that there's about 5 to 7 days per year where we have unhealthy air quality. The other thing that you'll want to think about with all of the outdoors and trees and trails and scenic things that are around you, springtime allergies can be a little bit bad too. So a lot of people, if they have allergy issues, will just start taking some sort of antihistamine in the spring. Then by summer, it seems to clear out a little bit. But air quality and allergies can be a con if that's particularly important to you. I want to hit another potential con of living in American Fork. There's not a lot of nightlife. There aren't the bars and the clubs and things. If you're looking for that, you're going to want to be further north up towards Salt Lake. There aren't a lot of great dining options. Now, there are some good places in American Fork. Some places I would consider fine dining, but really to get really fancy, nice atmosphere, just really a good choice of restaurants and dining, you're probably heading up north a little bit into Salt Lake County. And as we're talking about going up into Salt Lake County, let's talk about some of the driving and commute times, because American Fork is very centrally located and you're close to so much. If you're into skiing, snowboarding, and winter sports, you're about an hour from Park City. You're about a half an hour from the mouth of Little Cottonwood and Big Cottonwood Canyons, and up there you have resorts like Brighton and Alta and different ski resorts. It'll take you a little bit of time to get up the canyon, but to get to the mouth of the canyon's about 30 minutes. If you are working in the tech center, especially in the area called Silicon Slopes, you're literally 10 minutes away from Silicon Slopes, which is incredible. You're probably 20 minutes away from downtown Provo, which also has a lot of tech industry. And while we're talking about Provo, let's talk about BYU and UVU. You're probably 20 minutes to BYU and probably about 10 to 13 minutes to UVU from American Fork. If you're thinking about commuting up into Salt Lake City, you're about 30 to 31 minutes from downtown Salt Lake and to the Salt Lake International Airport, which has direct flights to Paris and China and all kinds of places. It's a great hub, Delta hubs out of Salt Lake, so you can get a lot of places. You're only about 35, 36 minutes, depending on traffic, to get up to the Salt Lake International Airport. So super close, yet tucked away in this kind of suburban feeling neighborhoods. So American Fork, as far as commuting times go, you're close to employment centers, you're close to the Salt Lake International Airport, you're close to school and educational opportunities, you're close to the tech sectors, you're close to entertainment and dining. It's a great place to live as far as how close you are to everything you're going to want to be doing. I mentioned just a little bit the great school scores. I want to talk about the educational opportunities in American Fork. It is a great place for people who have children attending UVU or BYU. You're only about 35 minutes or so from University of Utah. Lots of great educational opportunities with the great school scores as well. Secondary and elementary education, you have a lot of great educational opportunities in the area. American Fork High School actually has a highly acclaimed theater program, and most of the schools, especially American Fork High, have all kinds of extracurricular activities, lots of arts, lots of sporting activities, so it's a great place for educational and extracurricular things that are going on. So overall, American Fork has a great quality of life. It's a very healthy place to live. It's close to everything you're going to want to be to. Commute times can get tricky during rush hour. And like anywhere else in Utah, another con that you're going to have is the seasonal weather. We will have big snowstorms that come through, dump snow down right at the start of the morning commute. I don't know why they're always in the early morning, but it seems like there will be days in the winter where you have a treacherous commute, and so you'll want to think about that in the winter time. But in general, American Fork is a beautiful place to live.